back. Today we're going to cover sections 2.1 and 2.2, which we're going to be talking about tables and trends. So if you look at this example number 1, and note again, like in all my videos, you can always pause it and work it out and then come back for an explanation. So to start this, we've got y of x equals 3x. Okay, so this means what I always like to do is and I did this ahead of time to save some time, but I did y in parentheses equals 3 in parentheses. That means what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute each of these values in 0, 1, 2, and 3. And that means 3 times 0. 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 3 times 3. So what are these values? Well, 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So this is what this means. So before, what we've done is we've actually given you some data points, but now we're going to start looking at formulas and equations. Now, let's take a look at the second example. The second example is f of x equals 3x plus 7. So I've got negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So on this one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill in the parts, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And I'm going to go ahead and do the math. Now, some of us in here can do this on in our head, which is fine. Some of us can use calculators, but I'm just drawing this out by hand. Okay, so what is 3 times negative 2? It's negative 6. Negative 6 plus 7 gives me, so in math, negative 6 plus 7. Now, if you have a problem with negatives and positives, look at my YouTube videos on integers. Okay, so negative 7 or negative 6 plus 7 gives me a positive 1. Then I've got 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3 plus 7 gives me a positive 4. 3 times 0, I like 0 because that gives you 0 plus 7. 0 plus 7 equals 7. 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 7 is 10. And finally, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 7 is 13. So these are my answers in red. 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13. Now I want you all to notice a little trend on this. Okay? The trend is, take a look at red. What are they doing? They're going up by 3. And the reason why they're going up by 3 is because of that 3 right here in front of the x. Okay, next, let's do this one. This time I'm going to put an exponent. Okay, I'm going to still use my negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in an exponent. So this is going to be x squared minus 8. So negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Now in my previous lessons, anytime you're dealing with exponents, anytime I'm substitute things in, I always like using parentheses. So I'm going to say parentheses negative 2, parentheses negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So negative 2 squared. Now, if you put negative 2 squared in your calculators, it's probably going to give you a negative 4. Put it in parentheses and look what you get. You get 4. What is 4 minus 8? Negative 4. Take a look at negative 1. Negative 1 squared gives you a positive 1 minus 8. And that makes it a negative 7. Okay? 0 I like. 0 minus 8 gives you a negative 8. Now 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 8 is negative 7. And finally, 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Well, like I said before, with different trends on this, take a look what the pattern looks like. Okay, here's the pattern. The pattern is, take a look at your negative 4. Do you see another negative 4? Take a look at your negative 7 on your red. um, take a look at your x values. So if you look at your negative 4s, it's a negative 2 and a positive 2. Look at your negative 1, or I'm sorry, your negative 7. It's negative 1 and positive 1. So if we kind of extended these to different negative, maybe 5 and positive 5 and so forth, you're going to have the same answers. It's basically, it's a reflection. Okay? Now, let me scroll down. What happens if I give you in this case, I've given you two different equations with charts. Now, the f of x and the g of x. So I've given you all two different functions, but you still plug in your values in. So as you're copying this, you can pause this, but as what I'm doing right now is I'm just filling in the blanks. Okay, now when you plug in these values, I'm going to kind of look over the first one. Negative 2 to the third power. If you put that in your calculator, you get negative 8, but you still have this negative right here. Makes it a positive 8. 8 plus 5, everybody should get 13. Take a look at negative 2. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4. Then you'd say 4 minus that 4, which gives you 0. Okay? So what I'm going to put in is all the answers, and you can go back and check your work. And this gives you the answers. Go back and review everything that you know about integers. Like I said, I've got quite a few videos on YouTube on my page. Okay, same thing with this on this one, but now this one's a little bit different because now I've given you two different functions. Now think about this for a second. This, and if we're dealing with graphing on our graphing calculator, we may use y1 and y2. But anyway, so what I want you to do on the first one is I want to say, okay, it's negative to the third power plus 5. Okay, what is your value? Well, since this is f of 7, so I'm going to put in 7 for right here. So I'm going to say, okay, what is negative? It's not negative 7 to the third. It's negative 7 to the third. Okay? So if you put this in your calculator, 7 to the third power, you should get 343. But it's going to be a negative 343 because of it being negative on the outside of the parentheses. Plus 5, so you should come up with negative 338. Okay? Now I'm still using the same 7, but now I'm going to put it in, since this is g right here, I'm going to use it in my orange equation. 4 minus 7 squared. So that's the same as 4 minus, okay, 7 squared is 49, so it's 4 minus 49, which is a negative 45. Now I'm going to end this lesson on 2 word problems. Okay? Now the first word problem is I want to just use, and instead of using all these different widgets and gadgets and everything that you see in examples, I'm going to say Megan buys a car for $30,000 in 2012. And each year it depreciates $3,000. Okay? And I'm asking us several parts to this. Okay? Now, one thing I do bring up in these classes is usually when we're talking about depreciation, and especially with cars, we people bring up that they know and have seen and use Kelley Blue Book, okay, because that kind of gives you a good, fair, excellent, bad values of your card if you decide to trade it in or to sell it, or to buy one. So, so the first part of this is, what is the price in 2013? Well, one thing I wanted to say is I'm going to come up with an equation first. Okay. Now, the initial value is what we start with. It's $30,000. What is the price? Well, in this case, the price, maybe we say f of x. It just depends on, if I don't give you anything, you can use whatever you want. So f of x is, it's 30,000. That's our initial value. And what depreciate means? It means we're subtracting $3,000 each year. So in 2013, that means there's 1 year. So 30,000 minus 3,000 gives you, it should be worth, by this, $27,000. Okay. Now, what about in 2016? It says write in functional notation. So all it's asking you is f. What are we going to put in this equation for x? You put 2016? No, you would say 2016 and 2012. That's the initial year that we bought the car in. How many years has passed? 4. Okay. Find or evaluate f of 4. Well, if I use my original equation, I'm going to say, okay, f of 4 equals, now this just tells me that I'm putting 4 in for x. So I'm going to say 30,000 minus 3,000 times 4. 3,000 times 4 is 12,000. So 30,000 30,000 minus 12,000 gives you, gives you $18,000. So now graph the first 4 years of the car. Well, the first year of the car, so it's going to be 30,000. Depreciates how many? 3,000. So I'm going to say 127. Year 2, it depreciates down to 24,000. Your third year, it depreciates 3 times 3 is not, so it goes down to 21. And that fourth one that we found, it goes to 18. Now, by doing this on this, well, it's hard for me to do on this, but you connect the dots, it is a straight line. Okay. Now, my last example, I got 2 more, I'm sorry. I want to introduce you to this one. F of x equals 6 over x. So that means, what is 6 over? So each one of these I'm going to say negative 6. What does that give you? 6 over 0 equals what? 6 over 6 equals what? 6 over 12. And finally, 6 over 18. Okay? Now, 6 over negative 6, that's negative 1. Now put this in your calculator. 6 divided by 0. You cannot do it. That does not work. That's called undefined. Okay, 6 divided by 6 gives you a positive 1. 6 divided by 12 is 1/2 or 0.5. And 6 divided by 18 gives you 0.33 or 1/3. Okay, The key to this is you cannot divide by 0. Now, my final example will be a Pizza Hut example. Okay? So I'm going to kind of put this up here and kind of explain what I'm talking about. So Pizza Hut has a cost of, say, if it spent $20,000 maybe on an oven, and it has a fixed cost at $3 a pizza. So that's they're including probably the maintenance of the building, your bills, your electric bills, and so forth, water bills, your salary and of your staff. So all that's taken consideration. So what is a good cost formula? Well, the cost of making a pizza is going to be, and if you want to do this, I'm going to use C for cost, P for pizza. Cost for pizza is going to be, so it's going to cost me $20,000 at the beginning plus 3P. Okay? Now, what about the revenue? So revenue per pizza is $7. So that means we're making $7 for every pizza. So that's how we're making up this this cost. Okay, now profit. Now, I don't know, some of us may have had business and economics in high school, or maybe you've taken some in college. But the profit is always your revenue minus your cost. You have to have more revenue than cost, or you're going to be in the hole. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, my revenue is 7 pizzas. Okay? So my profit's going to be my 7 pizzas minus, what is my cost formula? It is 20,000 plus 3P. So we're going to use some simple algebra here. So finally, my profit is going to be 7P minus 3P gives me 4P minus $20,000. Because we're in the hole $20,000. Okay? So one question we're always like to ask is, what is the break-even point? What happens when that $20,000 is erased? Well, by the profit means we're going to have to sell pizza, and we're making $4 per pizza. So what the break-even means is, that means you don't lose any or gain any. So it's 0 equals 4P minus 20,000. Now, to solve this, we're going to add 20,000 to both sides. So I've got 20,000 equals 4P. And finally, what I want to do is I want to divide by that 4. So to break even, I'm going to have to sell 500 or 5,000 pizzas. Okay, like I said, if you need to go back and watch the videos, feel free to. For my class, homework number 4 on WebAssign. Thank you for listening.